And today's session is kind of, once again, nudged by the universe and learning to kind of practice the pause and get curious. And what does all that mean? And so I know personally I've had several experiences recently and then in the past where it's challenged me to want to show up or be vulnerable when conflicts arise. And within that, I've always been a very curious person. I've always asked a lot of questions and leaning into wanting to understand the why. And why do you feel that way? Or please share with me your perspective and perceptions of your reality and what's going on. Because no matter what, our perceptions, it's my truth and how I'm perceiving the world, and no differently than it's your truth than how you're perceiving the world and what's going on with you. And the goal is then to be able to come together and friendship and relationship, familyship, to be able to hopefully be open and vulnerable and sharing those insights that mean, and those feelings and emotions that mean a lot to us. And so I came across recently a passage from the Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz that really stood out to me. And I want to read it to you. And just kind of take it to heart, sit and be with it in your meditation time, and try and really think about how you're showing up with getting curious, or are you so rigid and stuck and this is the way it is, this is black and white, where essentially then isn't really any time or opening space for maybe you are wrong. Maybe you're absolutely right, and being able to stand in your truth and be solid within that. But here's a little excerpt that I read and want to read to you from the Four Agreements with Don Miguel Ruiz. So the way to keep yourself from making assumptions is to ask questions. Make sure the communication is clear. If you don't understand, ask. Have the courage to ask questions until you are clear as you can be. And even then, do not assume you know all there is to know about a given situation. Once you hear the answer, you will not have to make assumptions because you will know the truth. And so if things and situations or conversations still feel like there's unrest, then get curious and practice the pause. So before just like essentially jumping in, okay, and sharing your thoughts, no, really examine, how am I feeling about what was just said to me? How am I feeling? What are my thoughts and emotions? Get into that lovely exploration mode as far as within yourself internally. And within that, these really beautiful awarenesses can really come into play as far as where you know you are standing in your truth. Because that a lot of times will feel like it's unshakable. It'll feel like there is a peace. There's, like for me, it feels like there's a warm sensation in my heart, and I'm unwavering. I'm solid when I know I'm standing in my truth. And how I feel in relation to still pondering and wondering about a situation and feeling off. Sometimes it can create a little bit of anxiousness or a play of having a hard time sleeping. And within that, the goal is to always get curious, lean back into that person or that situation. And, you know, maybe sometimes a conversation can be had. Maybe sometimes it is about the power of prayer or intention, and where you may not feel safe and or comfortable in reaching out to that particular person or family member, there is a potential conflict or unrest, but you can work with it energetically. And I've kind of talked a little bit about that in my previous live sessions. And that's where like the power of prayer and meditation comes into play, and really thinking about and feeling into. Joe Dispenza talks a lot. He's a quantum physicist, and really put in the practical application of really feeling into how you desire a situation, a friendship or relationship to be, to feel it first. So if you want harmony, you more than likely have experienced harmony in your life. to be able to give yourself that feeling, whether it's happening in lifetime right now with that person or situation. If you want love, more than likely you know what love feels like. Return to that and feel it, be it, and then exude that out emotionally and energetically to, one, first and foremost, yourself, but then also that situation, the work situation, the family situation, and what your desires are with that. Now, once again, you need that other person or family member to then equally lean in. And if not, that's where a lot of times then on the emotional spectrum, that's where your own personal work can really begin. But that's where it is, getting curious, like from what I just read with you with the 4 agreements, ask questions, get way curious. And allow that other person that you're sitting or being with to ask you questions just to gain that clarity and understanding. Where are you both coming from? And maybe you agree to disagree because you're both standing in your truth. This is how I feel, the perceptions, etc. But you're still opening yourself up for that beautiful dialogue and healing that potentially can happen. And most importantly, within yourself. And so I hope, like the excerpt from The 4 Agreements with Don Miguel Ruiz, I highly recommend that book. And get curious too with Joe Dispenza. He, like I said, he talks about as far as feeling the emotion and then kind of with what you desire and putting that out there. So practice the pause when you're triggered, when you're having a hard time kind of working through. Ask your guides, your loved ones, your angels to kind of come in and help guide and direct. And then pay attention to those signs and synchronicities. They are there for a reason. And even if sometimes it doesn't make sense, I've had a lot of that happening lately. A lot of signs and synchronicities. And I'm like, I don't understand. But then yet my gut's telling me to follow through with it. And sure enough, I followed through. And sometimes it kicks back with some pretty good resistance. But then yet, why would the universe provide those signs and synchronicities? And so sometimes it's kind of sitting and being with the unknown. I don't get it. I don't understand, but yet it's there. And so give yourself that too. So as far as just kind of what the universe has brought forward with practicing the pause, getting curious and honoring your own true self, and just being open to others to be able to do that as well. Is a beautiful practice and a space to be in. And much love and gratitude, and do at least one thing today that illuminates your soul and brings you joy.